Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am Kristen Boyce, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a private practice, Pathways to Healing Counseling. Through conversations, education, strategies, and shared stories, we will be closing the chapter on all the thoughts, feelings, people, and circumstances that don't serve you anymore and open the door to possibilities and the real you. You won't want to miss an episode, so be sure to subscribe. Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I always have that excitement in my voice because doing this podcast is soul giving. I get to meet such inspirational people, talk to people about the podcast when they share on social media or just send me a note saying what episode resonated with them or was life-giving. It gives me so much energy for love and healing and continuing the podcast. So thank you for listening from the bottom of my heart. I hope it's powerful in your life. I hope it impacts you. And when you're down or you're feeling stuck, depressed, afraid, overwhelmed, in despair, hopeless, that you'll put on the podcast and it gives you life. It reminds you not to give up and that you're worthy and that you matter. So I hope this touches your soul in some way. And if you're like me, you might not be, but I have been fascinated about relationships. What makes them last? What is it that makes them last? And I continuously love to hear about people's stories and how they grow. And being a marriage therapist, it is so important to have a keen curiosity about relationships, not only about yourself, but how do they work? How do you get outside of your ego to meet someone else's soul and have purpose and meaning in the relationship within yourself and in the relationship? What are your values? What do you want out of the relationship? What do you want out of your life? Do you share that with your partner or do you not talk to your partner? I am shocked at how many people don't have deeper conversations with their partners. And I know you crave it. I really do. I think we all crave it. We want a soul connection, a spirit connection. It can only happen from sharing your heart. And my guest today, this is her life's work too. She has had a keen curiosity as a kid about relationships, what makes them work, what doesn't make them work. And don't we reflect on our own childhoods? What did we see? What did we notice with our parents? What did we notice with other people and their parents and adults in general about relationships and how they work? And we all want a healthy relationships. And so it's important you understand what makes a healthy relationship. So let me tell you about Reta, author of the upcoming book, Guide to Lasting Love. Reta Fay Walker is a seasoned relationship expert with a passion to guide couples into conscious relationship. We got to be conscious. We have to be awake and aware of our own stuff so we can know what we're bringing into a relationship. I added that in. With over 25 years experience and more than 25,000 face-to-face hours. I think that's probably how many I have. Maybe that exact amount or close. Reta helps couples identify their challenges, set goals, and develop action plans so they can renew their relationships and live authentic and joyful lives. I think so many of my guests have that in their bio because as a therapist, I do too. I want people to be themselves and not pretend to be somebody else. Even though we all can change a little bit with who we're with, we want you to feel comfortable and secure with who you are. And so we're going to dive into what makes lasting love. What questions do we need to be asking ourselves and our partner? Let's build an action plan. So take one thing away from this episode, write it down, and then put it into play for 21 days and see what happens. Grab the healing guide at kristendboyce.com. It's in the show notes /free resources. It's free. Start diving in, getting curious if you're not already. And then you can get a newsletter. I don't want to provide any unhelpful content. I want only things that are going to give us life. So be a part of the community, join us, and enjoy this episode and share it with a friend or your partner if it spoke to you. I hope you get out of this what you need and it gives you life, gives you meaning, and you find value. Enjoy. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. Are you in a relationship, or maybe you want to be in a relationship, a healthy one? A one that lasts a long time. Couples, it's hard to find the right match. And we always say, when you do, how do you make it last? And my guest today, Reta Fay Walker, has just written a book. It just came out on February 18th. Congratulations. Guide to Lasting Love. Oh my gosh, how many of us want lasting love? That's what everybody wants. I mean, we want lasting love. So, welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast, Rita. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. It's a real pleasure to be here. I believe that I wrote this book. I started writing this book in my heart many years ago. As a young girl, I remember in my hometown uh, watching the couples that were close and the couples that were connected and the couples that weren't, and making decisions about who would last. Now, as a therapist, fast forward many years after, as a therapist, I had trouble with couples. I had trouble helping couples. So I wrote copious notes on what works and what didn't. And as a matter of fact, I would hand each couple a recipe card, action plans, or conversation scripts, or playbooks, just notes on what to go home and do. And they'd tell me what works and what didn't. So this was the basis of my book.
I'm so glad you wrote it because we know that if you have a strong relationship, a healthy relationship with someone else, it creates a sense of security within, and
Yes.
they reflect back to us. If we're with someone romantically, they're going to reflect back to us our childhood wounds. Oh, isn't this lovely? We're like, oh, great. We have this movie, this fantasy we play out in our head of how we think it's supposed to be. And it's going to be this, oh, everything's wonderful. And then we pull the curtain back and we're like, oh, you have issues too? Oh my gosh. So how do people start to have more of a sense of what's realistic about the formula for lasting love? What is even the formula for lasting love?
But thanks for mentioning that, because when the honeymoon ends, somewhere between 6 months to 3 years, when that stage ends, and the very first time one partner is disappointed in the other, there's a reality check, power struggles, it's just not the same. And if you don't know how to navigate those steps, the relationship can pretty soon sour. People look for exit doors, and it's just not a happy relationship. But one of the things that I thought was really important, certainly to me in my 30s, became the first chapter of my book. It was called Having a Purpose-Filled Relationship. And I found that this step came just about the time when I was feeling kind of the angst of relationship. Is this all there is to life? A nice house, a cute husband, he was still handsome then, and a job, 3 kids. Is this all there is to life? Just in between the busyness and the distraction, there was this question. So asking myself that question required me to answer that question. Answering that question brought us all closer as a couple, closer as a family. And I think couples need that.
How did you answer the question? Like when you said, what's your purpose? What question did you answer? Like, what is their purpose with this relationship?
What's the purpose? What am I doing here? What's my personal purpose? And what is my personal purpose? I needed to connect that to relationship and to family. And when I did that, so step 1 was just through that self-awareness step. I did some journaling. I read self-help. I did courses. I had no blueprint. I really didn't. But I really needed to answer that question to take it to the next step, which was to have the conversation about boredom, loneliness. Is this all there is to it? Why am I not happy? We have everything. You're an okay guy. I'm an okay person. We have it all. So that conversations now, no, it's just not one conversation, right? A series of conversations led us to just a whole process of defining what our values were, our vision, our goal, and just starting to move forward on what that vision might be together and individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Then you start this. So you say, okay, what is my purpose? Because I believe we all want to find meaning. And I think if we don't find meaning, we feel lonely, we feel isolated, we feel bored, we feel discouraged, despair, hopeless. I mean, we can go on. So you find what's my purpose. And this is hard for some people, right? And I can be like, the purpose might be that you are here to just be an open-hearted space for love to come through and create more love in the world. I mean, I'm giving you an example, but people get really hung up like they have to have this big purpose. And it's like, tone it down a little so you don't feel so overwhelmed. Then you share it with your partner. And then you
Yes.
guys are talking about your hopes, your dreams, your goals, your values,
Yes.
and you're encouraging one another in.
Yes.
Is that the first chapter? I mean, is this what we're focused on?
Yes, that's it. And you know what? I'm glad you brought up about how people angst, they travel miles, they read many books. What's my purpose? It's not a secret. All of our purpose is around service, serving others and being served by others. But that service, of course, someone like me, I brought order to our home. My husband brought the fun. We bring who we are and we serve with what we have. Does that make sense?
Yes, I feel like we're all here on an assignment. I know that sucks, but like we each have an assignment. And as a couple, we're like, oh, we came together to help each other with our assignments. And then
Yes.
we're like, well, what's my assignment? Well, being who you are is your assignment. Like
Yes.
being yourself is an
Yes.
assignment in and of itself. Like it doesn't have to be this grand thing that we think we have to do. Just being yourself is an assignment because we're individually unique. And
Yes.
that assignment isn't going to look the same. So someone else's assignment, and they might have struggles that you don't understand, but maybe that was their assignment for whatever reason. I know this sounds, I'm getting out there. I think we're on the same page of what we're saying.
Yes. No, for example, the musician in the family brings music to the family, brings the love for theater, brings the love for the outdoors person, the one who just loves, just feels in the zone when they're outdoors. I have a friend, she brings the outdoors to the family and to her husband. And so you're growing while the family or the partner is growing. But we all have different gifts. We land on planet Earth with, like 2 feet, and we are already in our purpose.
I love those
And
examples.
it's already there. And years ago, I used to think, oh, what is it? I was always the one who was moving things forward, who was coming, new ideas, creating.
Yeah, I love these ideas because somebody might click something like if you love pets, that's what you're bringing in. You're bringing the love of animals. You're bringing the love of music, theater,
Yes.
creativity, or nature, or
Yes.
outdoors, or birds,
Yes.
bird lovers. Maybe you love the ocean and water. So you're bringing these elements into
Yes.
your relationship. And like for me, I love deep conversations. I mean, everyone's like, okay, here comes Kristen with her deep conversations. It's just what I bring.
Yes.
It's just me being me. And
Yes.
therefore, these are the things you're talking about that you're bringing into the relationship to the family system.
Absolutely. All of these many parts of you, Kristen, is why you're here. It's why we're doing this. That's because of these parts of you and the parts of me. And so in every relationship, we're bringing this energy and this synergy together that makes something new.
That's what you're talking about, lasting love. I mean, this is bringing these elements forward and having them be accepted, cultivated, loved, and coming together in the couplehood. Is that what you're saying? Because that creates the meaning and the purpose and the connection, and you're helping each other grow and evolve.
Yes. And when there's meaning, there's no stagnation. When you have meaning in the relationship, the person becomes more real to you. You are more real to them. Each member of the family, it extends to each member of the family. And so the relationship becomes something more, it's not so transactional. It's not about who does what. There is more care, more natural empathy, more natural understanding. I know how he's feeling. He says, I know how she's feeling about that. And it's all because we've created this, we've shared this meaning in the relationship. Personal, my meaning, that person's meaning, and the relationship now has sort of a brand.
Okay. So this reframes this movie that being rescued by the knight in shining armor to the key is finding meaning within yourself and then bring it to the relationship and the family system. And we honor and acknowledge and be an empathic witness and encourager for that person's meaning. in the
Yes,
couplehood.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And then when the ups and downs of life comes, when there's more money or less money, or career changes, or you're working together on it, that was the end goal. You can support each other because you've been there along with a shared meaning to life. I think it's just important that couples, starting out, couples at any stage of the relationship, need to have these conversations to discover more about each other, about themselves. And it just means growth for everyone, right?
Yes. Let's say someone comes into a relationship and they're like, well, my partner really isn't into exploring any of this. Cause they'll come into our offices. You know this, right? They come into our offices and we've got one person with a growth mindset that wants to grow, that's passionate about it, doing their own work. And then we've got another person in the couplehood that's really not interested. What do you say about that?
Now, can I tell you, my husband, I'm 3 times married because my husband before died, but my husband is exactly that person. He is a great guy. He says, but self-help, he's probably never read a self-help book. But you know what I find is if we use $1,000,000 words, we won't attract a connection. So by that I mean, I wouldn't say to my husband, I feel disconnected. I wouldn't say that. I would say something like, have you felt kind of bored lately? Like, oh, what's this all about? And I would engage the topic that I wanted to address without using words we use big words. It means one thing to one person. It means something else to someone else. If I use the word disconnected to my husband, he'd be terrified that we were getting a divorce.
So you wouldn't use the word disconnected. Rather, you would talk about a specific topic. An example. So let's say you wouldn't say disconnected. You would say, what would you say?
I would talk about, and I would engage my feelings. I would imagine he was feeling something of the same. So I'd say, are you feeling this? So that way I create an environment we're in it together. $1,000,000 words, I say we need to break them down. I probably wouldn't say disconnected, but it is what I felt leading to me to put a label of disconnection. I've been feeling like we just aren't getting together the way we used to. Or maybe it's the things that we're not doing, or maybe we're just too busy. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. So you're saying, because I want people to really understand this, because a lot of people have been told, tell the person you feel disconnected. So you're saying, don't say that. You need to say something along the lines of, I've been feeling that things have changed a little bit and we're maybe not on the same page. Would that be a way to say that? And I really want to figure out how you're feeling and what's going on for you.
Absolutely. No, Kristen, I would love, in a perfect world, we would use $1,000,000 words and the person would understand us. But what I hear with couples is one person says disconnected, the other person hears something else. So a good conversation needs to be aware of not what my words are saying, but what the other person's hearing.
Yes. What I find too is the person that's feeling disconnected, a lot of times the other person's like, I'm fine. Like, I'm not feeling disconnected. Like, what are you talking about? They don't even know what that means. So we have to kind of get underneath that word is what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. We need to break it down in a way that we can relate to each other. And sometimes you use descriptions, you metaphors. Remember back when we used to do this, this, and this. Or remember back when we used to feel this way. Or we used to, and perhaps that conversation leads to a new understanding. Just needs to be a shared understanding.
Okay.
So I'm always cautious about what I call $1,000,000 words.
What are the other $1,000,000 words for all of the listeners who don't know what they are?
Sometimes people will say, you know what? They'll make comments. The one that comes to mind, a couple once said, oh, she's a drama queen. Well, I mean, that's so hurtful to the person listening. He may not have meant it that way. Or you'll say, he's a man's man. Or they're not necessarily a $1,000,000 word, but it's a cliche that one person hears it different.
You're so sensitive. You're so emotional.
Yes.
Those are ones I'm like, can we blow those up, please? Like, no.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. You're an empath. And I know what it means. And if I were married to a social worker, they might know, or a therapist, they might know exactly what I mean. But your average guy's not. Your average woman may not.
So don't use the therapetized words, right? In other words,
Therapetized word,
cliches.
cliches, emotionally laden words, anything at all that could be misconstrued as hurtful, or even putting somebody in an exclusive class, putting them further away. If someone said, "You're so sensitive," all of a sudden, that just makes me a type of person that can't come up.
Yeah, typology of a person. And then when we say always and never, I love you, but
Yes,
ugh, we feel like we got slimed
yes,
on. Those are also words I tell clients, please do eliminate. Or you starting a sentence with you might as well just hang up the towel because we're going to have a fight because you feel like you're ready for a battle zone. You right?
yes, absolutely.
You always leave the dishes and then the person's going to go, well, yesterday or last week I did. And you're just going to go back and forth.
Absolutely.
You're
The
not getting
language has got to
underneath.
be inclusive.
Yes. And get underneath what are you really feeling and saying? Because otherwise you're fighting over something that really that's not what it's about. Would you say that? Like, really, you're not really fighting over the dishes. You're fighting because you don't feel like the person, you feel like they don't hear you, they don't understand you, they don't see you. So, with couples, how do you help them start building this everlasting love? Now we've got our mission state or our purpose, our meaning, kind of our values. Now, where do we go from there?
So I would say your first step is some self inquiry. And then you can even tell your partner what you're doing. Just thinking about how we've gone over the stages, whatever that self inquiry is. And then I share it in a way that the other person will understand. And it doesn't have to be one conversation, but sharing it leads to a natural next step, finding some platform in which you can tweak or share or change some of what you're doing. In many cases, Kristen, individuals feel this angst because of the busyness and distraction of life, which is absolutely normal for a young couple. But that busyness and that distraction leads them into really feeling separation.
When you say self inquiry, for those that are listening, what does that look like? So someone's like, I don't even know what that would look like. Self inquiry. You and I know as therapists, but for someone that's like, what does that even look like for me? How self inquiry? What would that look like for someone?
Journal, ask yourself some questions. So, my 3 questions: what am I getting from this relationship? What do I want from life? And what is this all about? Not necessarily in that order, but all of these questions, these what, why, where, when questions about your life, about you, who you are. As you know, each decade, more or less, we change. And so, without that self inquiry, we are not able to bring the relationship into the change process.
It's really self awareness. So I tell people, like, you got to be self aware. Like, what am I feeling? We got to get curious. Like, what am I feeling? Oh, I'm feeling really afraid right now. I'm afraid they think differently of me. And then that we make up stories. So the story making up is you really don't like me anymore. Okay. Get that on the table because your stories are keeping you from connecting, really. And we make up all kinds of stories about what the other person thinks.
What the other person thinks, and therefore what it will mean for me, for them, and for us.
So we do the self inquiry, we figure out what we're feeling, we kind of look at the stories we're making up, and then we're going to share it with our partner.
Share it with our partner. And like I say, it may not be just one conversation. It may be a series of conversations. And then we can even have check-ins. What's changed? And then we move on to, I think every couple at some stage in the relationship need to actually have a written shared vision. How often, I mean, we're two different people, right? One person wants to have the home paid for. The other person wants adventure trips. One person wants to have a few parties every year. The other person wants quiet getaways or none at all. One person is focused on extended family. The other person, not so much. But if you never bring that value, these ideas, these secrets, these thoughts, these things that you've wanted and always wanted, and you don't know what the other person wants, you'll have unnecessary clashes, right?
It always shocks me when couples don't talk. They're like, I go, have you ever talked about this? Well, no. I'm like, well, that's why you feel the way you do. We get curious about your own wants, why you like that, why you want that, where does it come from? And both of you are sharing and asking questions of that type.
Yes. I even encourage couples to write. I have an action plan at the end of each chapter. And one of my action plans around relationship stages is asking couples to create a shared vision. They begin with an individual vision. And it may be as simple as just top 5 items that first come to mind. What you want. I want to have a home paid for. I want vacation. I want to climb Kilimanjaro. And write these top 5 things down. I want a secure family. And invite your partner to do the same. Bring your lists together and find at least your top 3. Make sure they happen in some way, shape, or form.
Now, let's say your partner's like, I don't like your list. I mean, I don't want to do your list. Then where do you go from there? Like, let's say you have a hard time, because this is what happens with couples, right? Can we come together? Can we compromise? Like, how do you help couples bring their lists, their visions, their missions, their action plan, and come together and work through that?
So I always say that conversations always have to start out well. If they don't, it's hard to recover. So before I do an exercise like this, I would invite my partner to participate. I say, I want to do this. How do you feel about it? Do you like to do this exercise? In fact, I sort of invite them into the process, and the person might say, oh, I don't know if I want to write a list like that. I wouldn't know. Okay, let me help. If you had to guess, what would be your first item? So the idea is to help, we help each other along in different ways, right? There are some things I cannot do. I cannot open a jar if my life depends on it. I can't fix things, but my partner does those things for me, helps me along in that way. Conversation, that's my domain. I help my partner along. So how it starts is we invite your partner into this vision building. And if that person is not necessarily as interested or even as attuned to that kind of thing, just say, okay, just tell me why. And you start with that one thing they've always wanted. And what often happens for couples is that one person does the list, the other person does not. So I'm sure you've seen that. So then you just say, okay, here are my 5 things. What is the one thing you've always wanted? When you thought about being married, and having a life, what did you ever want? If it's nothing, well, then it's nothing. And then I would probably say, well, when you think about it, or next time you're at the boat show and you get inspiration, let me know. And so you work with what you have.
I think because there's different aspects. You have one aspect of what do you want, another aspect, what's the vision for our relationship? And I like this question. Now I'm getting a little deeper. Okay. I like to ask too, what did you notice about your parents' relationship and what did you want to do differently? Because I feel like we only know, and let's be honest, most parents had a very dysfunctional relationship. I mean, they didn't have all the tools, not everybody's, but I mean, I would say the vast majority did not have, because we have generational trauma, we have lots going on, health issues, deaths, divorces. I mean, we could go on and on because we learn from that. It's like, this is the time for self-reflection to say, what do I want to do differently in my relationship? And people are like, oh, we got to go back to our past. I'm like, we do, because it matters. And it's not to dwell on it. It's to have insight, understand yourself and what you want. So I like that question too. Like, what do you want to do differently than your parents did? Or
great question.
Your mom did or your dad did.
Stimulate ideas in your partner. Like I say, the conversation doesn't have to be just once.
Yes.
Because sometimes I find too, when you leave a question, when you drop a question in someone's mind, it might take a few days, but they come up with answers.
Yeah, it could percolate for a
Or,
while.
and the other question to ask is, when you watch TV and you see people doing something, what do you most want to do? What are you looking forward?
Yeah, I think it's the self-reflection in couplehood is essential. If we
It,
don't self-reflect, we don't grow. And I feel like
yeah,
we didn't get that memo. I mean, my parents were like, well, we need to grow and self-reflect. No, they're surviving. They're trying to survive. They're still trapped in their own childhood traumas. And they didn't really do that much self-reflection because they didn't want to feel the pain of their past. They didn't know we have to feel that pain in order to clear it out. So we can't have a healthy relationship until we clear that. I mean, not totally clear it because it's never totally cleared. And we move through it and get to the other
yes.
side of it. But they weren't taught that. I really believe that. They didn't have all this information about neuroscience and the body and the emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? They probably at a different, your parents probably lived with a different mindset. Putting food on the table was way, way, way more important than your feelings. And just difference between survival and thriving. Your parents may have lived in survival mode. We, as sort of a first world society, if you wish, we want to thrive. We want to be happy. We want relationships that contribute to our lives. We want to grow. We are very different from our parents.
It's just such an interesting time to think about what creates thriving relationships, what creates long lasting relationships. And I don't think that curiosity will ever die off. Will it for you? I'm constantly curious about it. What sets these couples apart? Like you said, I mean, this is a curiosity in you that just continues to come through your spirit.
Well, I really do believe it's a good step that finding a crafting purpose-filled relationship makes a difference. And so when couples get past that vision, they know what kind of actions create more meaningful conversation. Instead of how was your day, it could be what did you long for today, or what went really well, or how do you feel about something, and have those conversations. It's so small, but just the act of sharing with your partner something that you love about them. I call it the gratitudes list. Make an open gratitude journal where you write down things you notice about your partner. Maybe they're just very good looking, or maybe you love the way they sing in the morning, or the way they snore at night. I don't know. But there are things that, and we need to not just remember it, but we need to share it with our partners. But these are all ways that our relationships become more intentional and purpose filled and more not so transactional.
You're pouring that love into the other person's cup. And I find when I give those specific compliments to my husband, and they're specific, like I love how you noticed that we were out of milk and you went to the grocery store. Not only did you get the milk, you got yogurt, you got etc. I'm noticing exactly details and I'm telling him,
Yes.
like, thank
Yeah.
you. I go, you are so thoughtful like that. You are so thoughtful and caring. It's like you could see the little boy in him too. Like, oh, you could see his body almost like take a breath. Watch
Mm.
when you give someone a compliment and they're able to receive it. Sometimes we're not able to take those in, but watch the body and the nervous system's response in someone's face, their breath,
Yes.
their body, their facial expressions. You are pouring love into somebody else. There's no greater gift.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I love that. When it snows, my husband and I have to go out. My husband goes outside and he cleans the car. Never asks. Normally doesn't wake up to do anything else, but will always do wake up to take care of me when I'm going out. And I always just say, like, who does that? That's so wonderful. Yeah.
Yes.
Like
And you appreciate it
noticing,
so much
noticing and sharing.
because that's caring. As we say, sharing is caring. So this has been such an amazing conversation. Is there anything we did not cover that you want to make sure we cover about lasting relationships?
I'm sure there's lots that we didn't cover, but I think it's always good start is having that purpose-filled relationship, finding that meaning, however you do it. I think that's very valuable. And a relationship needs to be intentional, not unconscious.
Yes. What is one of the most impactful books? And it doesn't have to be about relationships, but in your own personal life, just thinking off the cuff, like a book that you've loved that has made a difference in your life, spoken to your soul. Is there any book that comes to mind that you can think of?
Mm. Oh, so many. I'm a contemplative, so I love people like Thomas Merton, Richard Rohr. I've read all their books. I love fiction, so I love Jodi Picoult. But I truly, really, in my perfect world, I would just be sitting with a book. In a perfect world, I'd be reading all day. So there are so many. I do love people like Thomas Merton, Henry Nouwen, Richard Rohr, and the relationship books, probably read, of course, them all.
Yeah. I mean, reading feeds the soul. So, okay. Where can people find you if they're interested in learning more about Rita? Where can they find you?
So on my Instagram, LinkedIn, I believe I sent you the links. And my website is RetaFaye Walker.com, RetaFayWalker.com. And Rita spelled with an E. So easy to remember. The book is on Amazon and I think Barnes and Noble, major bookseller.
And we'll link all of that in the show notes so you can find out about all of that Rita's got going on and the link to her site and social media and the link to her book. So thank you so much, Rita, for being on the Close the Chapter podcast. I am so grateful for you and the work you're putting out into the world.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for having me. And just one last thing, March 24th and 25th, I'm offering a free virtual mastermind and having a connection in relationships.
Wonderful. We'll link that in the show notes too. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Close the Chapter podcast. My hope is that you took home some actionable steps along with motivation, inspiration, and hope for making sustainable change in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button to be sure to get the updated episodes every week and share with a friend or a family member. For more information about how to get connected, visit Kristen, KRISTEN, Boyce, BOICE.com. Thanks and have a great day.